What is going on, everybody? The Original Mako back with some more Gunfire Reborn content, and a couple of things real quick. First thing, noticed a couple of you have been talking about there's a noise that you can sometimes hear in the background. I know the constant noise that's going on. I know there's nothing I can do about it right now. I'm currently trying to get a ground diffuser to eliminate that. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one at the Micro Center I went to today, so I have to order one, and hopefully I'll be able to get that soon so we can kind of help alleviate some of that noise. I apologize in advance. I try to make it as not bad as possible with a little music in the background, trying to constantly talk, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that being said, today we're going to be hopping into a deep dive into the new character. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Plenty more content coming to you soon of this 1.0 release. Make sure you check the links down below. Twitch is down there. You can go follow me on Twitch. I'm streaming a lot, especially with this update being out. Monday through Friday, I'm streaming. You can probably catch me Monday, Wednesday in the evenings, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in the mornings. But either way, that being said, if you want to see some of that stuff live. But if not, let's go ahead and hop into the tips and tricks and character showcase video. I was going to say I need to make sure I'm in the bottom right for this so we can see everything above me here. So let's just talk about this character first. Attributes-wise, he has 85 health and 135 shield, a little bit more shield than health. And he's got pretty standard speed if we look at some of the other characters. Albai's a 5.2. Cat's slow, but is a 5. The bird's the fastest at a 5.5, or not the fastest, but has a 5.5. Tiger has a 6. And the bunny has a 5.2. So 3 of the 6 characters have a 5.2 speed. I believe this is in meters per second, which is slightly important for a reason that you will see in a second. His E ability, his Tidal Aspis, has a 10.5 second cooldown. And you summon a Tidal Aspis to block all attacks from frontal enemies for 5 seconds. When you recast this skill, or when the skill expires, the Aspis will be retracted, dealing AoE damage to enemies in front. When holding the Aspis, shooting becomes your striking punch, which is your secondary ability. And dash is enhanced to hurdle, which doubles movement distance and knocks back enemies on his way, dealing 1,050 normal damage at the end. Basically a shield. You put it in front of you, blocks all things coming from the front, not from the sides, not from the back, at the very end. Or if you press E again, it'll release, do a little animation in front, kind of swipe his hand and do a little bit of AoE damage in front. Does a significant amount, by the way. While you're holding this up, you cannot shoot your weapon. You can only use your striking punches, which is your secondary skill. And then once again, your leap or your dash becomes hurdle, which is kind of like a leap. Doubles how far you move, and it knocks back enemies, dealing some damage on the way. Oh yeah. And I guess we should talk about what he is. He's technically a snapping turtle, I guess. I'm going to call him a hedgehog because I see him as a hedgehog, and that's not going to change. So he's a hedgehog around these parts. Anyways, that's his E. And then striking punch has 8 capacity. And you punch ahead with your fists and cause 1,050 normal damage to a small area in front of you. For every 1 meter of movement speed... I know there's no speed there, but that's how it works. Plus 1 stack of fist sensation for 2 seconds. Every stack of fist sensation increases striking punch damage by 5%. Basically, the faster you're moving, the harder you're going to hit these punches with. So, kind of important to know, if you're walking forward without, any sort of movement impediments, you're going to be moving at 5.2 meters per second, I believe, which means you will be getting 5 stacks by default with this character. So that's an additional 25% damage, which can equate to about 1,300 instead of 1,050. A little more than that. Probably about 1,400 damage for your punch by default. So that's the character. That's the overview. Let's talk about some of his saucy ascensions real quick. Even though some of these will kind of be part of the tips and tricks, but that's fine. First and foremost here, we've got his enhanced striking punch tree, which is a very important tree, but Rogue Wave's a really important one because this one has every stack of fist sensation increases your next striking punch damage to 10%. So, and you get 4 stacks immediately after using Hurdle, no matter what. So this is just another really, really good way to pump your damage output. It's really nice. It does a lot of damage, and I have found this to be very useful in my runs. Next up, we have Dark Tide, which is basically just a way to get your striking punches back for the most part, which is really useful. If you're using your E a lot, which you should be, you are going to be running out of striking punches, typically. So any way to recover those is huge. Dark Tide is the best and most efficient way to do so. Next up, we have Tidal Rhythm, which is basically just a huge increase to your skill and weapon damage for 5 seconds after your E is done with. And then at tier 3, you get plus 120%. And each attack that you block gives an additional 10% damage boost. I mean, even 40% is nothing to shake a stick at, but 120% is wild damage output. So that's a saucy one. Irrepressible Surge is kind of a fun one. I guess it's kind of useful, but anyways, if an enemy is defeated while you're holding up your E, your Hurdle ability will have no cooldown for the next 2 seconds. Which means, yes, you can just spam leap your face into things, hitting them for damage. You can spam around the map for 2 seconds, as fast as you can click. And if an enemy gets killed, the cooldown resets. So if you keep killing enemies while you're hurdling, you're going to be able to keep hurdling constantly. So, yeah. And if an enemy is defeated within 1.2 seconds after you retract your E, then your E ability will have no cooldown for the next 2 seconds, so you can use it again right away. Pretty good, and definitely a fun one to mess around with, for sure. And then we have Wave Rider, which is a movement speed buff after your E retracts, and for every 1% movement speed bonus, you get an additional 1% weapon and skill damage. Just another way to pump your striking fist a little bit more. And then we do have one from this tree as well. This is like a really defensive tree, but White Water. Each block reflects a small amount of damage, which decreases gradually when getting far away from monsters. So your block by default does not reflect damage, it just blocks damage. This makes it reflect a little bit. But at tier 3, each block reflects a huge amount of damage, which decreases gradually when getting far away from monsters, and each block will cause 2,000 normal damage to enemies within 10 meters after retracting the Aspis, your E ability. So this is good, but you really want to try to get this to tier 3 if you're going to build it. But if you do get it to tier 3, solid ascension for sure. That being said, let's go ahead and talk about some of the tips and tricks for this character, as per usual. Now, this character is interesting because he's very similar to the bird. He's similar to a bird. He's a fucking hedgehog or turtle. How's he similar to a bird? Well, the bird is not nearly as reliant on weapons for his synergy as the dog, the cat, the bunny, and the tiger. If you're playing the dog, you want explosions. If you're playing the cat, you want elemental weapons. If you're playing the bunny, you want fast-firing weapons. If you're playing the tiger, you want high damage, high-impact weapons. You know, they have very specific weapons to build around them. The bird, pretty much a free-for-all. I mean, you know, Wild Hunt works really well. Tiger Cannon because of a specific ascension. But this guy, not as big of a deal in terms of his weapons. You can kind of just mess around and use whatever you want because, and this is tip number 5, almost all of your damage, especially if you're playing on like higher levels or whatever, is going to come from your kit, not your abilities, not basically your striking punch, not your weapons. Striking punch will be much better at dealing damage and wiping out enemies than any weapon you could pick up, unless you have like Demon Lord Advanced Depot or some really broken weapon. But most of the time, you're going to want to be focusing on your abilities, because they will do incomprehensible amounts of more damage compared to any weapons you could pick up on this character. That being said, it also gives you freedom to kind of build whatever weapon you want to build to have some good secondary damage when your abilities aren't up or active. If you don't have any striking punches, if your title Aspis is on cooldown, whatever. So this is the 5th tip. 4th tip here, which is also important, is there's a very specific combo that if you really want to play this character to his best ability, I think it is the best combo. And that would be this remnant that I'm... Oh, it'll probably be over here somewhere. The remnant that I'm hopefully putting on the screen now. Maybe I'm not. I'm hopefully putting it on the screen. I don't know. Hopefully I'll remember to do that. Basically, it's called Dominating Fists, I believe. Great name, by the way. And it essentially means that your stacks for fist sensation, once again, great name, will not drop below 20. So at the bare minimum, you have 20 stacks of fist sensation. That's just an additional 100% damage to all of your punches by default. If you're moving, that's 25 stacks by default. No movement speed buffs. Just by default, a 25 stacks of fist sensation, which is not only super good for doing more damage with your striking punches, but it's also pretty good for, you know, things like, where is it? Oh no. This is embarrassing. Yeah, here it is. After dealing damage with striking punch, plus 3% weapon damage for each stack of your fist sensation for 6 seconds. So if you have 20 stacks by default, that means this is a guaranteed 60% weapon damage boost for 6 seconds. That's not bad, Chief. So it's really good for stuff like that. But where it really gets out of hand is with Wave Breaking Blow. So this is an ascension I didn't talk about because it was specifically part of my tips and tricks. But for every 8 stacks of fist sensation you have, it will consume 1 additional use of striking punch and perform an additional punch with 40% damage. It can only do 4 additional punches at most, and if any punches kill an enemy, you recover the uses, which is very, 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 very good. So once again, if you have 25 by default, if you're moving with this character at all, you have 25 stacks. That means this is going to happen 3 times because 8, 16, 24. It's every 8 stacks. So you're already only 1 stack off of the maximum amount of punches. You already have really, really good recovery for your striking punch. And you're hitting like a truck to a lot of different enemies or the same enemy multiple times in case it has enough health to tank your hits. This has been just easily the best combo I have found for this character so far. Mind you, it's only been a couple of days of playing, but I got damn near through all of Reincarnation 1 without even using my weapon, without even considering it, which is something I've done on the bunny, and I also did it on the cat, I want to think. But I don't know if the bunny or the cat, maybe the bunny, bunny's close, was as easy as doing it on this. The only reason I died is because I literally punched myself into a corner and got trapped by enemies and couldn't get out. But this is such a good combo and super good at clearing waves or clearing rooms and getting you, being the main building point of your synergy. Wave Breaking Blow plus the Dominating Fist Ascension or Remnant, and then all you have to do is, honestly, you could just be like, okay, we'll maybe try to get a little bit of skill damage, and then we'll just build defense and say, hell, here we go, baby, let's get it. And you can probably complete most runs. Reincarnation 8, different story. I'll hopefully have a video about Reincarnation 8 soon with tips and tricks. That is a monstrous. Reincarnation 8's not a joke. Anyway, that's the 4th tip because that is really, 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 really important. The next one is, something that's very obvious, but I feel like it has to be on the tips and tricks for this character because of how useful and important it really is. That's not... No. Logbook, thank you. This character's built around movement speed. What does that mean? Focus on it a lot. It's more important than you might think. Like, the extra damage is a big deal. Abnormal speed, huge. Even something like a propulsion device, any sort of movement abilities, because propulsion device means that when you have your E up and your dash transforms into the hurdle, you have 2 additional hurdle charges, which is really, really good. Something like snow boots, which means you have immunity to slows. You cannot be slowed down and get less stacks. Once again, advanced joggers. There's all sorts of additional movement speeds. Decay driver, tactical reload, especially enhanced tactical reload is wild. It's so good. You know, any sort of movement speed that you can find is really good. The only one that's kind of just depends on your playstyle. Strategic advantage is a banger. That kind of depends on your playstyle is Ostrich Rider. Like, obviously, plus 50% movement speed is pretty saucy, but you have your cooldown for the dash increased by a crazy amount. So that one's kind of just depends on if you really like Ostrich Rider or not. I'm not a big fan of Ostrich Rider, so I don't really use it, but definitely a viable option on this character. Any way you can move faster, you're going to want to take. Along the same lines, while we're talking about scrolls, any sort of skill damage buff or skill buff, secondary skill buff, you're going to want to take. Double exhilaration. There are so many that were added in the most recent, in the 1.0 update. It's insane. Sucker Punch. Skill damage when you hit an enemy that has more than 70% health. Enduring Caster. Pretty nuts, especially if you get something like Veteran and start stacking that early on this character. Holy shit. If you get Veteran early, Enduring Caster, you're going to be hitting like a truck. Vindictive Nature. There's Skill Bible. There's, I'm trying to think of any of the other new ones. I haven't even seen this scroll yet. Skill Bible. There's, this one. Each time your skill deals damage, it will inflict additional skill damage based on how much copper you currently own. This plus Devil's Covenant. I mean, there are so many ways to increase skill damage, and you want to try to find all of them. Any additional way, there's another really good one. If I can find it. Surprise bonus. 15% chance to deal double damage for any skill. If you have this plus the Remnant, that gives you double damage. I don't know exactly how that works, but that could be a potential chance for a quadruple damage buff. Well, that would definitely be quadruple damage because Skill Freak guarantees double damage, and then every 15% chance to deal double damage again. Quadruple damage. Just like that. It's that easy. There are so many ways to increase skill damage. Look for it, find it, inject it into your veins. I mean, I don't know if I can show this. Like, I don't know if it'll say. But for some of these runs, let me try to find the good one. Like this one. Will it say my highest in one? No, it won't. But this was, I believe, this was the run where I was, Reincarnation 1. I was doing the not using a weapon challenge. I think I hit for like almost 600,000 damage just from these punches. And all we had was, we had Enduring Caster. We had a little bit of movement speed. I mean, propulsion device, advanced joggers type thing, double exhilaration. But outside of that, we don't even have very many skill upgrades. Like, obviously, we have ascensions, but this is the only thing that's increasing. Oh, and untold effort. But that's it. Imagine if you have like 6 or 7. Like, the damage output you can do with this character is kind of mind-blowing from his abilities. Like, he really doesn't seem like they should do that much damage, but they do. So, movement speed and skill damage. Please. Next, the number 2. Numero dos. Tip is cooldown reduction. Or, I guess, also something like increased duration for your E ability. Why? The E ability is super important for a defensive, from a defensive front, but also because Having hurdle, getting that additional movement speed, being able to safely just face tank while you're punching stuff, especially bosses, is so unbelievably important. So any way to extend the duration, such as Mighty Stream, or to reduce the cooldown, such as Formidable Aspis. After you retract it, 50% damage for the next 5 shots. Every enemy killed reduces cooldown. I know there's more cooldown reductions for this thing somewhere. I don't have these memorized yet. Oh, here's one. If any block occurs while holding it, 30% of the magazine will... Nope, that's not one at all. This is don't listen. There's one really important one I wanted to talk about, but I don't know where it went. I think it's a tier 3 of something. It's Mighty Stream anyway. Okay. So, but whatever. So once you get to tier 3 on Mighty Stream, plus you get 1 second duration on your E for every attack that you block. Now every time you recover that, it shortens the max duration. So it's kind of like Magical Supply. It will not be infinite, but you can get a lot of extra time out of this, and it's super, super useful and really, really good. The E ability, once you really understand how to use it and where to position yourself, it's ridiculous. So any sort of way to reduce cooldown. Oh, here we go. For every consumed use of Striking Punch, recover half a second duration of Tidal Aspis when you're shielded. So this is another way to get additional duration and reduces the cooldown in general. So Stormy Riptide is a really good one for cooldown reduction. He has a lot of really... There are very few ascensions on him that I think are just you're not really going to want to use this. A lot of these are really useful. So cooldown reduction is my number 2 tip for the E ability. Storage, if you have good cooldown reduction, getting energy storage, also a pog move, I think. And now we're on to the number 1 tip that I have for this character, and it's very similar to tips that I have for all sorts of other things, but it's maybe even more important on this character. Know your target prioritization list. I'm tempted to make a target prioritization list video to kind of help some players, some newer players, understand the higher threat targets versus the lower threats, and how important it is to understand this, because that is by far and away the most important thing you can know in this game in general. But with a character that has a Reinhardt shield only in front, it's so important, because if you're in the middle of the desert, right, and you're like, oh no, these coyotes, oh my god, they're gonna eat my wiener off, right? They're gonna nibble on my dick cheese in between the folds of my foreskin because I'm uncircumcised. If you're like that, and you're like, okay, I need to block these coyotes, and there's bandit retainers and bandit tacticians behind you, or a dark face bandit, or even a rogue bandit, you're toast, because you're once you have the shield up, you're probably going to be so fixated on it. Now, if it's a bandit tactician, you'll probably see your screen glow red, so you can maybe use the visual cue to just flip yourself around. But being able to position yourself in a place where you get most of the threats blocked with your shield, but definitely the most important threats blocked. If I'm playing even on high reincarnation levels, I need to make sure I'm not going to get hit by tracking bullets from a bandit retainer, or a sniper that can one-shot you with a bandit tactician. So I need to make sure those are blocked. If I get hit by a couple coyotes behind me, well, I'll be damned. I'll get them in a second, but I have to make sure that I'm positioned correctly for my shield. Super important, super useful. Understand targets and understand positioning. So target prioritization and positioning, which those are just things, I don't even have good positioning with him yet for his shield. I need to get way better at positioning. But those are the things, the two most important things you can do on this character is prioritize the correct targets and position yourself in a good spot to be able to just eat as much of the damage as possible while hopefully being able to output some good damage as well, and making sure you have all the targets covered, the important threats covered. So that's my tips and tricks and character showcase for the new character, Qiansui, the hedgehog. He's actually a turtle. I'm going to call him a hedgehog. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'm having a ton of fun with this new character. I think they nailed it. I think they did a really good job with the new weapons too, which I will be adding into the tier list very soon. I'm very excited to add these weapons in. I'll probably change some other weapons around too. I might just do a fresh tier list for the full update. I feel like it deserves it. Regardless, hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know what other type of content you want to see, things I've got planned, tier list. Might do an entire video on the new scrolls because there's a lot of them. The new boss / area, last area in general, I think. And then, like I said, I honestly might make a target prioritization video because it's something that's really, really good to know and super important to understand. So that being said, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you check those links down in the description as always if you want to see me do runs live. Also, playing with viewers is going to start coming back. I still need to figure out the exact day, but our first playing with viewers day will be sometime next week. I don't know, maybe you might be watching this later and like, what the hell? If you're watching this one out right when it goes up, sometime next week we'll start that. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for hanging out in the video. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I love each and every one of your faces, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.